Welcome to Veteran State of Mind. I'm your host, Geraint Jones, and I have a great guest for you today, as per usual. Before we get into it, I want to say a big thank you to Combat Fuel for sponsoring today's episode. You know how much I love Combat Fuel. You know how much I love Juicy Gains. We got a specialist for Juicy Gains on the podcast episode today, actually. So if you are inspired to get yourself down the gym, then I highly recommend Combat Fuel. Why? Because the products are made from the highest quality ingredients. They're, I'm not going to say that there's a lot of cowboy outfits out there, but there's definitely a lot of different standards in the supplement industry. I know I've tried a lot of them myself. I trust Combat Fuel. I use them myself. I use the pre-workout. Well, they have two kinds of pre-workout, actually. I use both of them. I use the pre-workout and I use the pump-up. And sometimes I mix them together when I'm feeling a little crazy. Also use the vegan protein. I'm not vegan, but their vegan protein is delicious, so I'd be mad not to use it. Solid caramel flavour. And also, I'd like to tuck into a box of Mountain Joe bars. If they've got any of those in stock, then I highly recommend them. They got all sorts of things on there. Guys especially, I recommend that you get their ZMA product. ZMA, I'm not American. ZMA. Get some of that. Give yourself some nice morning glories. You'll notice a difference when you take that. If you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or if you're just single, then you will enjoy them. Right, going to get into today's guest. This guy, he surfaced on social media in my, and I kind of first started seeing him pop up on social media when, you know me guys, I've been quite interested in the lockdown and what's going on. By interested, I mean infuriated. And I've been really interested in what's been going on with the gym closures, because as much as I can understand the reasoning behind lockdowns in many areas, for instance, clubs, I couldn't understand it for the gyms where we've got things like, we're talking about protect the NHS. Well, there's a lot of ways of protecting the NHS, and one of those is to have a routine involving health and fitness. And I feel like the health and fitness industry has really come under attack. And this lad has been someone that's stood up for it. You probably know him for social media. His name is Nick Whitcombe. He's on social media at Nick Capo. You might know him as that. And we had a great talk today. We talked about how he got his relationship with fitness, how he got first started getting into it, and also the darker side of the fitness industry, things like steroid abuse. We talk a bit about recreational drugs too. Nick's got a pretty interesting story with that. And then we also talked about social media, and we talked about some of the things that we're optimistic about, but also some of the things that are kind of going wrong in this country, and about some of the threats that we have maybe to our democracy. So yeah, a lot to get into in this episode, guys. To be honest, we just finished recording it. Absolutely flew by. So without further ado, please give a very warm welcome to Mr. Nick Whitcombe. Nick, welcome to the podcast, mate. How you doing?
Thank you, dude. I am doing well. How about yourself?
Good, mate. Been looking forward to this chat. Been a while coming.
You and I both.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably feel the same way, mate. Like the last year, it feels in one sense like so long ago, where all this kind of, I'll just call it what it is, madness, started. And but at the same time, it just feels like no time at all. Because I think I've probably been following you on social media and stuff now for some time deep into last year, and it just feels like the time's just gone nowhere, mate.
Yeah, it's hard to differentiate between which lockdown, which tier, where we are, isn't it? It all seems to have rolled into one big story of madness, as you say.
And you've kind of been on the I almost said front line. Then I hate that term. I was going to say on like the kind of the wave, the first wave of it, mate. And we'll get in and talk about that. But obviously, one of the things I really want to get into today, amongst a lot of other things, is constant this thing of having fitness as a cornerstone of your life. So I was wondering, and this is what I enjoy about doing these longer chats and stuff, is, I always want to know when I'm seeing someone on the news, because you've done quite a bit on the news and stuff. You've been quite prominent on there, and I just think I always want to know, when did someone first get interested into that kind of sector that they're talking about? So when was it for you? What was your relationship to fitness like when you were a kid?
Exercise in general saved me, to be honest. I was a trouble kid in school. Didn't fit in. They tried to separate me and put me in an isolated section at the side of school. And I wasn't really finding the conventional education system was doing anything for me whatsoever. And I was an intelligent kid, but I just didn't feel. I felt like they were trying to force a square piece of Lego through a circle passage, and it just didn't work for me. And I adopted a sport called parkour when I was in my very early teens. It's also known as free running, and that that took me away from school, and I had a sort of a mutual understanding with school where they'd give me days off. So I had like 3.5 days off officially per week to go and do parkour and free running with friends. So this kind of predated where they were clamping down on truancy in schools. They just kind of seen that it wasn't working for me in school, seen that I was passionate about something else, and this was in the days where they could get away with just saying, "Go on, you go do you." And this was at age 13, age 14, and we started doing really well with it. We were one of the first teams in the country, and it's essentially like obstacle course training over rooftops and buildings. We were just jumping from this rooftop and that rooftop, and it developed out of us just being chased by the police, just out of pure boredom. 13 years old, what can we do? I know, let's cause trouble and get chased by the police. And then it evolved into something so much more than that. And once we found the discipline element of things, it really kind of, we were really able to harness what it was that we had, and we got so many people on board, and we had a really good career through it because we were one of the first in the UK. We got picked up by, all the big brands, Nike, Adidas, Red Bull, you name it. We're like 16 years old, getting flown business class by Adidas around the world, and it really gave us something positive to push our energy through. Whereas, locally we had, there's nothing left in our community anymore. I don't know about yourself. We've got no community centres anymore. There's no youth clubs anymore. Like our Royal British Legion's gone. Everything that was there for the communities was taken away. So we just had to find a way to channel that energy, and it worked really well for us. And we got to say maybe 18, 19, and the council tried to clamp down on it. They called it antisocial behaviour. And it was confusing at the time. We had this big battle with the council, and it's like, hang on a minute, we've got gangs and gangs of kids who would be out smashing cars, fighting with people who are just training together every day for hours on end, finding discipline, being healthy through exercise, fitness, you know what I mean? And we had this great community, and the council saw us as a threat because we were in such large numbers. And don't get me wrong, we weren't troubled kids. You're talking about a group of kids who would go on voluntary litter picks on a weekend just to try and make the community look a little bit better. Do you know what I mean? And we got forced out of that. And say around 2009, I stepped away from the parkour community, and I had damaged knees at the time. Doctor said to me, look, you either need to take a year off, or you're going to need surgery, and that's going to put you out for 2 years. So I stepped away from that. I said, look, I'll take the year off. What I'm going to do in the meanwhile, I'm going to join the gym. So I joined the local leisure centre, and within maybe 3 or 4 months, I developed really quickly. I had really good genetics. Obviously, I had a good base from the parkour side of things. And someone approached me and said, do you compete? What do you mean compete? I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, oh, bodybuilding. I'm like, all I knew at that point was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that was it. Do you know what I mean? Only because I was a big fan of his movies. Yeah. Because I was a big fan of the movies, and that's it. You know what I mean? And then it escalated quite fast, and it went from that comment in the gym to me then taking an interest in bodybuilding, to then me starting to use steroids, and then I competed in bodybuilding in 2012. I competed in the British Open, and I won the Junior Mr. Britain title in 2012. And then my relationship with exercise the waters kind of got muddied for a couple of years, and it become more about vanity and more about ego than it did health. And I lost myself for a little while in there. And it took me quite a few years to kind of recover from that mindset that I adopted in bodybuilding.
Let's come to that, mate, because that's something I really want to dig into. Because I think that's something a lot of people are going to relate to. But I'm really interested in some of this stuff you said about childhood, mate, because and this comes down, mate. It's also connected as well, because it's going to be hard to separate things here, because a lot of themes are going to be the same. But like you were saying, you were a kid, you were doing this stuff, you were getting together, you were kids that cared about the community. Yeah, you were jumping up walls and stuff. You weren't smashing walls or anything like that, we don't tell the rain it's being antisocial behaviour when it's falling on a rooftop, so I don't see what the difference is with the lad. But also, there's just this misconception of people see lads climbing up a wall, or, a lad's going to the gym or whatever, and they're just like, oh, it's not like, because it doesn't work for them. It's just nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. They don't understand, one, the development of discipline that you're making. 2, the bonds you're making with other people and the sense of community. And 3, in yourself, you're learning to overcome fear. You're challenging yourself. You and I kind of talking about this, I can't remember if it was last night or earlier today, we were talking about, just how we need challenges all the time and stuff. And, as a society, we can't expect people to go out and look for challenge and constantly push themselves and things. If when they go and do that, and we go, no, not that. That's antisocial behaviour. We want you to push yourself, down this channel. So, what kind of effect did that have on you when you were being told? Because you knew you weren't up to you knew you were being a good bloke or a good kid at the time. How did you start to then kind of look at positions of authority and stuff and kind of like fit that into like, well, hang on, I know I'm not doing anything wrong here, and I know I want to be a good bloke, and they're telling me I'm not. What the hell's going on here?
It was difficult at a young age, and I think when you face that kind of adversity from authority, the natural response is just to want to fight. Do you know what I mean? Like to look at authority and think this is it's an absolute joke. I mean, in later in life now, I can look at that same challenge from authority and think, right, you're just naive. Whereas as a teenager, it was this is an attack. They know we're doing good things and they're attacking us, and it creates a huge gap between community and the local authority. Well, it did for us at least, and if you're going to develop as a community, you need to strengthen that bond. The more that relationship is pulled apart, the less you're going to advance as a community. Do you know what I mean? And it was really difficult for us as kids facing that level of adversity. And we were only young, but we tackled it. We did challenge it, similar to what we've done recently with the gyms, as we'll get into. But they announced a ban on parkour. The council come out and said, we are banning parkour in the area. Now, they couldn't legally do that. That's like coming forward and saying we're banning football on the whole of the borough. You can't do it. But they thought, right, it's a gang of kids. We put this message out there. This is going to suppress it. It's going to put it to bed. So we, by chance, have quite a prestigious solicitors in our area. We approached them. I was only 18 at the time. And I said, look, this is the situation that we're in. This is what we do. These are all the huge corporations that we're working with. We've got all the community behind us. We're doing charity work with Oxfam, Clare's House, etc., etc. Can you help us? And within 3 days, he had the council come forward and issue a public apology and retract their ban on parkour. And we were able to train again, but then they made it near impossible for us to do anything. They put spikes everywhere. They put vandal grease everywhere. I mean, you want to see my local town. It looks like Fort Knox. There is barbed wire everywhere. It just absolutely destroyed it. And the interesting thing for me was, I mean, I come out of the area in 2014 and come back in 2017. Now, bear in mind, they banned this because it was antisocial, right? But we had all the local children behind us. Everybody was training. Everyone was positive. We had the community. We had the discipline. We had the health. So I stepped away. We didn't have much crime in the area. And when I come back in 2017, the first thing I still remember it now, it must have been the end of October. And I come into our town, it must have been in the evening, it was dark, and there was kids throwing fireworks at the police. And I just kind of stopped the car and I looked for a moment, and the realization of, wow, now you understand what antisocial behavior actually is, the council. Do you know what I mean? That this is what you've created. You've taken away every single avenue that the community had to bond together, the community centres and everything else. You've taken absolutely everything away, and you've created a beast by not getting behind the community and asking, what do you guys want? How can we work together to make this a better place for everybody? All they've thought is, we're in charge. We need to suppress this immediately. So, it's quite a sad story for me, that, and that's why I do so much for the community now, because I know that the local authority isn't really an entity that we can rely on. And, the kids in our area have gone from bad to worse to worse to worse again. And, it's now left to the people of the community to try and give them some direction and try and give them some sort of leadership and hope that they adopt, some positive change in their life. And it's an uphill battle, but if they're not going to do it, I guess it's left to the good guys to do their best.
Always makes me wonder, like, what do you think the kids are going to do then? Like, what do they think they're going to do? Like, they're just going to all of a sudden just, start piano lessons and go start piano lessons, are they? Like, that's what I can never get my head around. It's like, okay, well, it's like that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. You're going to take away parkour, what do you think is going to happen? Or if you're going to take away, there's a thing going on in Wrexham at the moment. There's a big, a green area in the middle of town where me and the lads used to go and meet up, and we'd throw a rugby ball around or kick a football around and stuff like that. And we had some great times there. And this was like post school. This was so This is kind of university age. Everyone comes back. We go and kick a ball around. Everyone catches up. Great time. It's outside of pubs. It's outside of clubs. It's outside of the kitchen, and it's just a bunch of lads getting together and being fit. Being active, getting physical. And they put a big fence around it first, so no one can go on there. And now they want to sell it off for property development. And it's like, well, those the equivalent age people now still exist. Where are they going to go? They're going to stuck in the house. So are they going to hang around on street corners or whatever? It's like, where do you think these people are going to go? If you take away the healthy options, then the only options left are the unhealthy ones. I'm big on personal choice, mate. So if someone wants to sit in front of a TV all the time, that's their choice. I would recommend they don't, but that's their choice. But when you take away all the other choices, if there is no green areas around, what are people supposed to do? You've taken those things away. I think one of the things I'm realizing as I get a bit older is how much your childhood does affect what goes on in the rest of your life. So I'm very lucky. I always say this, so listeners probably sick of me hearing me say this. My primary school is about 100 metres down the road from where we are now. And when we used to finish school, we used to go down the back here. There's a valley down there. Of course, the valley is Wales. And there's a river. There's a river down there. And we just used to go and fuck around the river and in the trees and all that kind of stuff. And then you go home. And I feel very lucky to have that because that kind of sets you up later in life. Most people grow up in cities. Most people live in cities. They don't have, that thing for them. And, if you don't get into that younger, it's very hard for people to then come into. And we'll get into gym life as an adult. One of the things I'm interested in, though, did it mess with your head flying business class as a kid? Because it messed with mine flying business class as an adult. I'll tell you that. I got a right ego on me. I'm back in economy now, but there was a time we used to fly business class, and I can see that must have been a bit of a hard thing to balance your ego when you're getting that kind of treatment as a young man.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we did have the small advantage of it predating the social media era. So this was sort of 2006, 2007. So it was just before Facebook come along and long before Instagram hit the scene in 2014. So that slightly saved us, but still we had our little £100 cameras and we're taking pictures everywhere and everything else. And it was important that we stayed focused on what we were doing, but most importantly, the type of community that we had was very, very liberal, and it was very anti-materialism. And we were just in our Primark sweat bottoms, and we used to go up to Decathlon in Southport, and we'd go in our old trainers, and we'd swap them for new ones off the shelf and leave our old ones on there. Do you know what I mean? We were humble kids because we were, the kind of people that we had around us came from, families with religious backgrounds, and it was all very, it was everybody had the right morals. Do you know what I mean? Which is why it was so disappointing when it was taken away from us, and it forced us to mature at a really high speed. Not only flying business class, but we're talking to marketing directors on the phone, pretending to be far more professional than we really are. Do you know what I mean? I'm googling things, trying to understand what words are, and I always mention one particular incident where Adidas were talking to me about an invoice. You're asking me to send an invoice to them, and I was having this argument via email. I was like, no, you send me the money first, and I'll send you the invoice, because I thought an invoice wasn't a receipt. Right. So I in the end, I had to Google what it was, and I was like, oh no, have I just ruined the biggest job that we've ever got? You know what I mean? So we were learning on our feet, but it was, if you were to have those same opportunities now at that age, and you were subject to social media and that external validation and the likes and the sharing and everything else, and that need to immediately share everything, I think that would have absolutely crippled our mental health. And I know that, the debate of whether social media has a net positive or net negative impact on us all, that's everyone has their own opinion on that. But I think personally, if we'd have had that same experience today, I don't think we'd have come out of that as positive as we did whatsoever. Not with all that external pressure. So I'm grateful that it happened when it did, in relation to social media and stuff like that.
What kind of environment did you have in the house, both in terms of their kind of attitude towards your fitness, attitudes towards work ethic, and also just kind of politics? Was that something that was ever kind of do you remember having around you as a kid?
Not really. I mean, I grew up pretty much without parents. Dad left when I was 2 years of age. Mum got pregnant with me at 15, had me at 16. So the relationship that me and her had was more of a brother and sister relationship than it was mother and son. And she wasn't, and to be fair to her, I'd have been no better at 15. We just kind of developed this understanding where she just let me do whatever I want. But the flip side of that was she'd do nothing for me. She didn't clean for me. She didn't cook for me. She didn't provide for me. A lot of the time, me and the lads would go out and we'd go to the back of like the local Italian restaurants and we'd steal sacks of potatoes, or we'd go and dig in the back of the bins in the back of Tesco, because if you get like a packet of 6 can of beans and one of them's damaged, they just chuck it out in the back if it doesn't sell as reduced. So we used to go digging through the bins, and we made it work. We had absolutely nothing, but we were still happy. Do you know what I mean? We managed to make it work, and that's something I try and really focus on in my adult life now. That the happiest moments that I had as a kid, I had absolutely nothing, no money, barely any food, but I had good people around me, and we were able to make that work. Do you know what I mean? And with regards to politics, not really, no, because I didn't have much of an adult's influence whatsoever. So I just had to kind of find my own feet as we went along. And as I say, I'm grateful for the fact that I had the people around me that were on a similar kind of wavelength, and we were able to make it work.
That's kind of cool in a way, though, because I think so many people just inherit their political views from their parents and never really question them. So it says, because I mean, people would assume like, all right, you're from Liverpool, you've probably grown up in like a staunch. Well, is it Liverpool or Birkenhead that you're from? Because I know it's slightly different, isn't it? Different, but same.
Yeah. We're in Wirral, not quite Birkenhead, yeah. But it takes me 12 minutes to get to Liverpool city centre from my house. But my family are like the generation above my mum. They're staunch Labour, and they're quite blind with it as well. Whatever Labour says, that's 100% correct, and they don't question it because they obviously come from that era in Liverpool from the 1980s when we were under heavy fire from Conservative government. And I do understand that, and I know it's hard for them to come through a traumatic experience and then still have that ability to remain objective. But as you say, I not having that from my parents, I was able to have a blank canvas. So I make my own opinions. And with regards to politics, I don't identify left, right, central, whatever. If there's a policy on the table and it's beneficial to the majority of people, it's right. If it's not, it's wrong. And I don't like this political. I don't like the pulling left and the pulling right, because it makes it near impossible for us to eventually get straight down the middle. Do you know what I mean? And and we've seen that all with COVID. It's not a case of let's have a conversation about what's best for everybody. It's let's just say the opposite of what the opposition is saying, so it looks like we had a better plan. And in my opinion, that's really dangerous, because you're playing with millions of people's lives just so you can look good in the press or whatever else. In my opinion, having those separate parties in the political system, I don't think it works. I think it should be mixed, and it should be the best qualified person for that particular position, and the policy should get passed based on healthy debate, open debate that we as the public would see. And it's as simple as that. What's right should be put through, and what's wrong shouldn't be. And it shouldn't be left or right, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think because one of the big problems we have at the moment is one party is say something and the other party say, oh, well, we disagree, that's an awful policy. All right, well, what's your policy? Well, we disagree with what they're saying. All right, well, what's your policy? Well, theirs is terrible. Okay, what's yours? And this thing, mate, of like, oh, well, yeah, we disagree with what they're doing, and now we're not going to turn up for the vote either. Like, what? Like, that's literally your one job, is to represent the people of your constituency and to go and vote.
Yeah.
That's your one job. And like, the fact that there's party whips who just tell everyone this is what the party's voting on. Because, in theory, and I know we've talked about this before, I don't believe we have democracy, because at the end of the day, you vote for someone in your area, they go down to London and then they say, oh, well, actually, I'm against this. Doesn't matter, mate. You're in the Conservative Party, you're voting this way, or you're in the... And then they make a big deal out of it when someone actually goes against the party. It's like, well, that should be happening all the time. That shouldn't be a big deal. So we don't have democracy in this country because we don't actually have equal representation or anything. That's a total fantasy. And I have to caveat with that. I still think we have one of the best countries in the world to live in, but I also think I have a great life, and I try and make my own life better every day. So why shouldn't we try and make a country better every day? Like this idea that we just go, oh well, we're better than the Congo, so let's just sit on our heels. It's like, nah, mate, it doesn't fucking work like that. And we'll come in a bit politics a bit more, mate. But you know, you were talking earlier about getting into bodybuilding and stuff, and this is an interesting one because I know a lot of people come to bodybuilding with for different reasons, the same as any other thing or any other pastime. It sounds like you came to it for quite, I'm going to say, quote unquote, innocent reasons. Like you didn't come in there like, oh, I hate my body, or you know, I got bullied as a kid and now I need to get big, and you know, you didn't come in with that kind of issue, but you came in, you know, with like, oh, I enjoy being physically active. I can't do parkour. I'll go to the gym. How did things then go from that to an unhealthy relationship with the gym?
A particular steroid called Trenbolone. That's what really caused me damage. And the way that I got into bodybuilding, as you say, it wasn't through the usual approach, which, you know, as you say, it's usually people with body image issues and, you know, self-esteem issues, and they get into it and it usually just accelerates them insecurities, which is, you know, it's kind of a wrong avenue to take, in my opinion, if that's what you're suffering with. But for me personally, like, it was very early on, again, predates Instagram, so there wasn't this big hype around it. It was a very small culture, and I got into it just wanting to be, you know, it was just like, oh, okay, let's try this out. You know, it's new, it's stimulating, let's give it a go. And, you know, almost immediately after that, I got straight involved with steroids, and there was no information anywhere. Now, bear in mind, there is information everywhere regarding your class A drugs or whatever else, you know, harm, you know, potential benefit, whatever. For steroids, it was such a suppressed culture. You had no information on it. So it was a case of, right, I want everything and I want to take it all. You know, it's all the same. These tablets are the same as them tablets or whatever else. Let's just try everything. And to get to, I mean, you find this is very, very common in bodybuilding, to get to, you know, the top levels, people utilize drugs that they shouldn't use. And Trenbolone comes from Finaplex. It's something that they pump cattle with to hold weight over long distances. Obviously, that's been put into a form that we can inject as humans. Now, as far as I'm aware, it's the only steroid that's been proven to permanently damage your brain chemistry. And I took this for maybe 18 months, and I damaged my pituitary gland for the best part of 3 years. They ended up doing a full rehab with an endocrinologist. And what it done to me was it accelerated my ego tenfold. I become possessive, aggressive. Every stereotype that you've ever heard about steroids as a blanket statement, there's usually not a whole lot of truth to it, but specific to Trenbolone, near enough everything bad that you've heard, you know, you can attach it to this particular drug. But I didn't know this, and nobody told me this. It was just, here you go, you get it off Big Dave at the gym or whatever. Go take this.
Every gym's got a Big Dave.
Yeah, Big Dave. Get it off Big Dave. You know, and you know, I'm taking this, and you lose yourself that much with it altering your brain chemistry. And what it does is it inhibits your body's ability to produce dopamine and the likes. So you're constantly in a mood. You're pissed off all the time. You just want to argue with everybody. You want to fight with everybody. You feel like you're absolutely invincible. You're paranoid big time. So, you know, you then turn into this huge guy who's got all these issues and all these controlling issues and all these power issues. And then it went very quickly from me taking steroids to then me selling steroids to cover my own steroid use, to then utilizing the friends that I had around the world from the parkour days to exporting steroids. Then I started working on the doors in Liverpool city centre. I got into moodier circles. Then I got into exporting harder drugs. And then I eventually come to the end of sort of late 2014. I was arrested for importing drugs into Jersey and the Channel Islands. Now, that was probably the best thing that's happened to me in the last 7 years, getting arrested for that. Because the path that I was on at this point now, I'd lost myself that much that I was only going to end up either dead or with a significantly longer jail sentence. And I'm grateful for the fact that I was arrested. Don't get me wrong. I'm more so from the person that I'd become. Do you know what I mean? I'd become so obsessed with power and having people around me, and I was making tons of money. But I wasn't interested in the money. I was interested in the power that money gave me. That, you know, the hordes of people I had around me wanting to be my friend, wanting to come to the club. We'd be buying the bar out, buying champagne, you know, hotel rooms for everybody. And I found myself surrounded by all these new, you know, friends, quote unquote. And I was so lost in myself and so lost in the situation that you don't really see what's going on until you're able to step back from it. And if I hadn't gone to jail, I never would have had that. And being removed from that situation, and the way that I normally tell it is, I think I was about 4 or 5 months into my sentence when it really clicked for me. Because when I went in, we had a picture board in Jersey. It must have been the size of like a 50-inch TV where you put your pictures up. And I had the first wave of pictures that I had sent in was the fancy cars and the champagne parties and all the new friends in the hotels. And I've just got this 50-inch board covered in all these fancy pictures. And the letters come in the first week or two, and everybody misses you. And oh my God, because they're loving the hype. Oh, blah blah blah. And then, as time progresses, as you go through the months, the letters get less and less from those particular people. And then the letters from your original friends start increasing more. And when it hit me was the picture board. So I'd gradually been taking sort of 2 pictures down of the old life, 2 pictures up from the new life. But I wasn't really registering what I was doing while I was doing it. Until one day I was in my cell and I looked up at the board. And every single one of them original pictures from all them new friends had gone. I'd replaced the last ones with all the original old friends from the parkour days and the positive days and the community days. And I looked up at the board and it was like, wow, I hadn't even realized that I'd completely changed this board into a depiction of a previous life. And I'm like, hang on, this is clearly what really matters to me. I've lost myself so much, and I lost some good people in the process. And it wasn't until that moment I was like, wow, what did I let myself become? Do you know what I mean? And then obviously that was only 6 months into my sentence. I had another 2.5 years to go after that because I got 6 years, and I could talk about the prison experience for hours on end. I don't want to take us too far down there unless you want to dig in.
Yeah, we'll come back to that, mate. But one thing I want to highlight is just because I hear this so often, and it's just something that it just seems to be part of the human experience for a lot of people, especially young men, is you start home, you go off, you have all these experiences that you thought you wanted to do, and then you end up back home and you go, no, this is what I wanted to be. And you can look at some of the oldest books in human history that we have now involve this kind of story about a young man going away, realizing that wasn't all it thought it was cracked up to be, and coming home and being happy. It just happens all the time. One of the things I'm interested in, mate, because I'm kind of on the steroid thing. Again, I'm personally, if someone wants to take tremboloni sandwiches or whatever, they know what they're doing, they want to do it, that's on anyone. But what I would say to people, because I love fucking the gym, mate. Well, I don't love fucking the gym. I love the fucking gym. And although I missed it that much, I might fuck it. And I just tell young lads, as in when I'm talking young lads starting the gym, you don't need steroids. Your body, when you're a young man, your body is a steroid producing machine. At that point, you don't need steroids when you're 18 years old. You really don't. And I understand where it comes from. And I think there's a good opportunity for us, mate, to address young men in particular, because let's be honest, mate, when you are, because I'll full disclosure, I've done tren myself, I've done test, done tren, done that kind of stuff. You know what? Look pretty fucking good. But wasn't doing it for the right reasons, mate. I remember going to a pool party in Vegas, and because I was different to you, I went into the gym because I did have body dysmorphia. I still have body dysmorphia. I don't think it ever goes away fully. I had it as a kid, was a fat kid, got bullied in school and stuff. And I remember being at a pool party in Vegas, and I had probably about 6% body fat at the time, looked really good shape, and I was like, I don't want to take my top off. I'm fat. And so what I say to people is, taking steroids and lifting weights and stuff will not cure the actual issue, which is you don't feel that you're worthy, or that doesn't get cured by getting bigger, because the bigger you get, you'll just find faults. You'll keep finding faults until you address the fact that your worth is not tied into your appearance, or it's not tied into how much money you're making, or how many bottles you pop. Because I tell you what, mate, I've been down that route too. I popped a lot of bottles, bought a lot of hotel rooms for people, and you know how many people I speak to from those years now? Maybe 2 or 3.
Yep.
So, and again, this is something that happens to a lot of young lads. So young lads, listen to this right now. If you start popping bottles, start having a look around who's around you, because if those people wouldn't sit in a fucking garden shed with you having a can of beer, then they're not for people you want to be in a club with. How did you go from being in the gym to having the steroids though? Like, where was that point of access for you to steroids? Was it when you started competing and someone said, look, this is what you need to do to compete, or how did that happen?
Believe it or not, it was my mum's partner at the time. And I'd have been 18, 19, and he was using himself, and it was, it was almost said in conversation like it was the norm. Oh, you want a bodybuild? Okay, well, you need to take these, you need to do that. He obviously wasn't educated on it whatsoever, and that, to push that to somebody of that age without giving them any information or any education on it whatsoever, it's dangerous. And as you say, you're looking for and for most people this is, looking for an external cure to an internal problem. You're never going to get there. If your issue is psychological and your issue is self-esteem, changing the way your body looks, or buying fancy cars, or buying bottles, that's not going to solve the issue. If you solve the issue internally first, you'll be happy with how you look, and then you can work on that to look better, and you'll still be happy. You should be able to look at your body in most forms and say, I'm happy with that, and I'm happy that it can be better than that. And I'm comfortable knowing that that's going to be a process. But thinking that that's going to solve all your problems by putting inches on or anything else, it's never going to happen. And I think we find so many young lads right now go into the gym, and straight away you're going to have Big Dave, because Big Dave's looking to make a sale. And it's
well, exactly, mate. He's looking to make a sale.
And this is the problem that we had in our area, that we still have these days. That people take their training and gym advice or steroid advice from the people who sell the gear. Now, you're only going to get one type of advice from a salesman, and that's, you want to buy as much as possible and take as much as possible. And that's terrifying, that we can't have a wider conversation on this. And as you say, I'm comfortable with anyone that does or doesn't want to take substances. I've got no issue with that whatsoever. But what I do advocate is proper education. And we should have, our industry suppresses this kind of information. Like, we hide the fact that people take steroids, and we have we have a lot of the top flank athletes that claim to be natural and they aren't. And, it's blurred lines. I don't know what your opinion is on this, between sort of, where is the line between coming forward and talking about use if you're one of the top pros versus coming forward? Does that encourage or does that educate? Where is what's the right approach?
I think, to be honest, right, everyone needs to find their fucking balls and their voice. And this doesn't just go for steroid use or substance use, but it goes for everything. You must have this. The amount of people that, like, I get, and you must get so many more, people going, I don't agree with this, but, and they'll say it in your DMs, but they won't say it in public. If everyone in the UK who was, let's say, a recreational drug user just came out and said, you know what? No, fucking bollocks. This makes our life better. We're going to fucking stand up and stick up for it. We could fucking decriminalise drugs in this year. But people won't say it. Same as steroids, mate. Like, we should be able to have an open conversation about steroids. A lad should be able to stick his hand up and say, you know what? I was lying. The reason I've been doing steroids for 2 years straight with no breaking cycles is because I have body issues, because my dad used to beat me up and I wanted to feel big. And now I've been taken. And you go, you know what, mate, that's totally understandable. And you know what? It's going to fucking suck coming off that cycle. But we've got you back and we do this together. But it doesn't happen. He just keeps doing it because he doesn't want to tell anyone that used to be scared of his dad. And so we go, mate, down the fucking road. People, and I've been there myself, mate. Like, there was a point in my life where I literally would have rather die than admit that I had fucking problems, mental health problems. I was literally like, you know what, death is better than talking about this. And I think it's only because one of the other lads took his life that made me realise, like, fucking hell, actually, no, it's not. This fucking, I want to live. Like you with the prison, mate. Sometimes it does take a rock bottom moment, mate. Sometimes, because let's be honest, as blokes, we can be a bit fucking thick-headed a lot of the time, and we need that smack in the head to really kind of make us see sense. We do. We're fucking apes.
We do.
But yeah, mate, I'm for, like, fucking conversation, mate. Like, everything that's happening in like at the moment with we're recording this after the vigil on the weekend that the police broke up, and there's a lot of people, a lot of women, obviously upset about blokes and things, and there's a lot of blokes who are confused, and it's like, you're both right with different reasons. Let's fucking talk about it and figure it out instead of shouting at each other or being ashamed to speak about it. People just need to talk more, mate. We need to get in the kitchen sessions, is what they do. but no, mate, they do. They just need to talk more, mate. And these top athletes, mate, I actually kind of like, I understand why they do it. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I lose respect for you when you don't come out and admit it, because you are selling a lie. It's the same as people who pretend to have a perfect life on social media. You're selling the lie and fucking up younger people's head for the sake of your what's in your wallet, basically.
It's super dangerous, and that's my biggest issue with the industry. And this is kind of why I left the scene in, say, 2012. I lost interest in like the community side of things because it was so fraudulent. And you know, the top level guys, it's not only a case of that they're not talking about it, it's that they're saying the complete opposite. They're saying, I'm natural, by my plan, you'll look like this. Well, no, that's not going to happen, is it? You are genetically superior, otherwise you wouldn't look like that anyway with any amount of steroids. Plus you're taking steroids on top. Plus you've got 10 years experience in the field. So to say to some kid who's got body image issues and he's just come into the scene and he sees you on Instagram looking absolutely phenomenal and goes, oh, if I buy this plan, I'm going to look like this. Buys the plan, follows the plan for 16 weeks, notices marginal increase in performance and appearance because he's natural, and that's the natural way that you progress. And he's going to think, why don't I look like that? I'm not good enough. You know, I'm never going to be good enough. And you're it's then a breeding ground for some of the most severe mental health issues that we have. You know, and as men, we don't talk about them. And you know, women are happy to talk. Obviously, not everybody, but you know, a lot of women are happy to talk amongst each other and they support each other. We as men, we're you know, we function quite differently, and we see this in study after study that we just don't speak out about it because it's not masculine, it's not tough. Do you know what I mean? And as you say, we all have issues, and we can all be dumb as fuck. We just need to, you know, drop the ego and drop that hesitation to talk about things, and just be like, look, this is the conversation, you know, this is the topic. Let's just talk about it and let's just move forward. It shouldn't be a bigger deal than that. And I don't, you know, it's sad that it's come to a point like this. And I think this has developed more in the last sort of 10 years again. And I keep talking about social media, but it has played such a big role in damaging people's mental health because of the way that we use it. Social media can be a brilliant tool, just as the internet can, if utilized properly. And, you know, we're just not doing that. And as you say, people are scared to have that conversation because they don't want to offend people or anything else. And we shouldn't be conducting ourselves, and certainly in politics, we shouldn't be writing policies based on people's feelings and emotions. It should be what's the best for health and for the country as a whole. That's how we move forward. It shouldn't be we're going to put the wrong policy in place that's going to kill people because we're worried about harming the feelings of the 1% who will be extra vocal about it. You know, we shouldn't be operating like that, in my opinion, and that's, you know, testament to the fact that we now have the highest rates of national depression that we've had ever.
People need to be realistic as well, mate, because the thing is, right, let's stick on steroids. It ain't hard to get steroids, right? They're there. They are fucking everywhere. And you know what? If you live in probably somewhere like a Wirral or a Wrexham or a small market town throughout the UK, they're fucking like, that's what, like, you go to a beefer and you see the size on the British lads from every other nationality. It's like, there's the fucking Brits, because everyone's got big fucking D-ball shoulders and fucking stuff, and you can spot them miles away. It's there. So let's fucking get it out in the open. Like this thing of like, and it's the same, and I'll keep it current with the rape thing. People get fucking raped. People have drug issues. This stuff is happening. Why are we pushing it into the shadows? Like, let's fucking get it out in the open. Let's talk about it. And if something's going to be, there will be people who continue to take steroids. But I guarantee you, mate, and I bet you probably think the same thing. There's a lot of lads out there who have got into a point where they probably don't want to be on steroids anymore, but they don't know how to get off them. And they don't want to talk to anyone about it because they don't want to admit that they got that problem.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And this hit me hard. Obviously, when I went to prison at the end of 2014, I was abusing steroids at the time. I wasn't just using, I was abusing, because there's a lot more information now than there was then, you know, over the last few years. It's come a long way, you know, to give it credit. But I went cold turkey when I went in. And because, you know, when you come off steroids, as you know, you need, for optimal rehabilitation, you need a post-cycle therapy. You need to kickstart your own system back to where it was, or you're going to reach a point like I did. I went into prison. The synthetic levels of testosterone that I was using gradually come down to zero because they wore off. And then my natural levels flatlined for a long time. It's about 7 or 8 months until they come back to normal. And I remember sitting there. I'm on a bunk bed with another big guy. He must have been mid-50s from London. I'm watching X Factor or something. And I just started crying my eyes out for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my testosterone had flatlined. My estrogen levels were through the roof. I'm crying my eyes out all the time. I'm depressed. I feel suicidal. I go to the healthcare outlet within the prison. I say, look, this is the issues. This is what I need. I know it's what I need. I have a little bit of experience in this. And they said, I'm sorry, no, it's not. That medicine isn't necessarily designed for that. We can't give it to you, but we can give you antidepressants. I'm like, I don't want antidepressants. Do you know what I mean? It's not that I'm depressed. I have a hormone deficiency. I just need to bring myself back to normal. So then they wouldn't give it to me. I spent 6 months on antidepressants. I put like 3 or 4 stone on because they put me on SSRIs. I was binge eating. And then 6 months in on antidepressants, I was still absolutely battered. And I said to them, look, you need to test my levels. So they tested my testosterone levels and they were still at zero because I had some nandrolone still in my system that can take up to 2 years to leave.
Wow.
And at that point they said, oh, okay, maybe we better try your way. And they give me the medication I needed. Within 3 weeks, I was back to optimal health.
And what did you do to get off it?
They put me on, I was on clomiphene citrate, which is Clomid, and Nolvadex, tamoxifen. And it took me 3 weeks to get back to normal, but they just put me through 6 months worth of hell on antidepressants, and only because I didn't need them. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying antidepressants don't work, but I'm saying I wasn't depressed.
Yeah, the symptom was the same, but the cause was not the same. Yeah,
it wasn't a neurochemical issue yet. It was a hormone issue. So they put me through 6 months of torture because it's not discussed. And as you say, lads are struggling to get off these things because they'll stop taking them and they'll get this crash. And they don't understand why they're crashing. They just know that when they're on steroids, they don't get the crash. So then you're stuck in this loop because there's lack of education and people stay on them forever. And as I say, there are, it's a wide category, steroids, whereas, there are a lot of dangerous things that you can take that have no place in human medicine. And there are things that have, medical applications, just normal testosterone therapy and stuff like that. But there's no conversation on what the difference is. It's just steroids, blanket, there it is. And it was the US that kicked this off. They had a huge baseball scandal. I don't know if you're aware, maybe early 2000s, I think, Barry Bonds and the likes. And they obviously come out that most of the top players over there were all abusing steroids. And they spent more time in Congress in that year debating steroids in sports than they spent discussing 9/11 or the war, the pending war. Maybe it was sort of mid-2000s. They spent more time discussing steroids in sports than they did why the towers fell at 9/11 and the Iraq war. More time on steroids than the Iraq war or why the towers fell. Like, how? Just because it was involved in sports and sports generate a ton of money and they needed to demonize the people that were using it rather than pushing things from an education standpoint. And that is really, really dangerous. To think that they take steroids more seriously than they do the towers falling in New York is terrifying.
Well, it's probably because their fucking industry is so much for the actual their actual pharmaceutical industry. They're all these politicians are on kickbacks from it too. So they want control over everything. But I'll say this as well to people: I haven't closed the door on steroids. I haven't used what would you call them, intravenous, not intravenous, but basically intramuscular. Sorry. I haven't done injections essentially for a few years now, and you know what? Coming out of that, because it was the same time I was abusing coke and MDMA all the time as well. So it wasn't nice. That wasn't a nice 6 months. I'm not gonna lie. And it took a while for my testosterone and stuff to come back from it. But I'm 37 years old now, and there will probably come a time when I start using testosterone again. But I've closed the door on trenbolone sandwiches and that kind of thing. I just don't. It just isn't worth what you get out of it. It just isn't worth it. But so I'm not going to. I'm going to be fully honest with people. I might start using testosterone again at some point.
100%, especially in your late 30s onwards. If you were in the US, for example, you could go down to your local healthcare clinic, and for $30 a month, they will put you straight on testosterone. They're it's that easy.
Yeah, and it's the same as drugs. I always say to people on this, like, I've abused drugs and I've used drugs, and I continue to plan on using drugs you know, and that's the same, the same with steroids. But like, there really is. There really is a difference, and you can only find that difference out. It's going to be different to every single person, depending on the situation they are in their life. But you can only get to there by having adult conversations about it. And on that subject, then, let's talk about recreational drugs. Really, kind of, what did you learn from your prison experience about, does the current system that we have actually put people off importing and selling drugs? And did it actually do anything to reform you? Did it do anything to help you when you were in prison? Did it give anything to, because obviously you went in there for a reason, which was your ego had got the best of you. You were putting money before people, all that kind of thing. Like, did it, anything you do there actually do anything to kind of change the path that you were on, or did you have to do that yourself?
I had to do that myself, and it's a sad state of affairs, really, because you see the vast majority of people that go in for crimes like mine, and all it is a breeding ground. You're taking somebody who's, I don't know, say there's somebody lives near you that sells, I don't know, 20-pound bags of weed, and he gets caught or whatever, he gets given a 6-month sentence. He goes to jail, and he's then mixing with the higher tier of suppliers from across the country, and you're basically just creating this huge network and hub for like-minded people who now have better contacts, who are just going to continue and accelerate what they're doing, and our reoffending rate in the UK is over 50%, which is terrifying. How much of a failure is that? That the minute you step outside the prison gates, when you're released, you flip a coin, and whichever way it lands, that's the odds of you coming back in or staying out, and it's terrifying. And
that's so. I want to say as well there, mate. Sorry to interrupt, but I want to put a point on there. That's the ones that get caught. That 50% is the people that get caught and go back. That's not including people that actually do it and don't get caught a second time.
Exactly. And we've got terrifying prison numbers here in the UK, and there's no rehabilitation whatsoever. The concept of prison, to the best of my understanding, in the UK at least, is your punishment is your time away from the community. Whilst you're within the prison system, you're meant to be rehabilitated and prepared for reintegration into society. Now, how do they expect you to rehabilitate if all they're doing is pushing you with a load of other people, taking away, your exercise time and everything else, mixing you with people who are higher up than you in the chain of supply? There's your ability to earn and everything else is gone. It's taken away from you. Your chances of getting employment once you come out of prison are next to zero. I've got lads who come out around the same time as me. They've applied for 250 jobs, and because they've got to declare that they've been to prison, instant no. So you're destined to fail immediately. And not only that, you serve a license. So I got a 6-year sentence. So I did 3 years within prison, and then you do 3 years on a community license. Now, if you do anything whatsoever wrong in them 3 years, if I do anything wrong, you get recalled instantly. If me and you were to bump into each other at a pub or a club, and you attacked me, and we got into a brawl. I just defended myself. We got into a brawl. Police come over, arrested us both because they didn't know whose responsibility it was. We got to the police station, and then you said, look, it was all my fault. I hit him. He was just defending himself. The fact that I was arrested, even if I didn't get charged, the fact that I was arrested, I would be automatically recalled to prison. I don't get a say in that. There's no hearing. There's no nothing. It's just bad character. You are automatically recalled to jail. Which is absolutely nuts. You can't do anything. They changed the law about 7 or 8 years ago. You can't leave the country. You've got to declare where you work and everything else. There's no help with housing. There's no help with employment. It's just one of them things that after you finish, that's it. There's nothing for you whatsoever. And the system is so broken because they keep, as with every public service, as with the NHS, as with the police, they just keep pulling money away from it and wondering why the problems are getting higher. If you keep taking police away, and then you stand there looking puzzled when crime goes up, or if you keep pulling nurses out of the NHS and wonder why hospitals are in a more and more battered state, or if you keep pulling, officers out of prisons and then wondering why the reoffending rate and the crime rate within prisons is high, you can't stand there and say, I wonder why this is happening. We are responsible because of what we're doing to the public services, and we're wasting money in all other areas. And I don't see how they're expecting a positive result from that whatsoever. I really, 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 really don't.
All right, so I think it's fair to say then, mate, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Would you say, as a net kind of an overall thing, putting people in prison for selling drugs, especially I should say smaller amounts, does not solve the problem of people then selling illegal drugs.
Correct. My personal opinion is the approach to non-violent crime needs to be changed completely. If it's non-violent, then a community sentence should be put into place and people should be given the option to do X amount of hours worth of work as they are with normal community service. But for non-violent offenders who are sentenced, under a certain amount of time, should be utilized in the community to, contribute to the community rather than it costing us a fortune. I think it's something crazy like £50,000 per prisoner we pay per year. Rather than do that, let's give them some work in the community. Why don't we just, give them all a tin of paint each and tell them they've got to do so many hours per week, or if they fail to attend, they go to prison. And then we could replenish all of our communities, have them looking, a little bit more positive, a little bit brighter. And they get to, have a sense of accomplishment, and they're still doing their bit within the community, and their families aren't destroyed. They're not destroying their link with their marriage, their kids, their career, everything else. It's a conversation that we should be having. As with everything else, it's hush hush.
I'm a big believer that people will play into the role that you give them. If you treat someone like a criminal and tell them that they're separate from society, they will act that way. If you tell a kid if he's a bad kid all the time, then that kid will start acting like a bad kid, And if you tell someone that they can do whatever they want in life and they can become an astronaut and they can become, whatever job, then that kid will reach for the fucking stars. People will do what you put into their head, and it's a sad one, mate, because I see both ends of the drug problem. I'm from fucking Wrexham, fucking spice capital of the UK. There's real problems with drugs. But at the same time, and I'll keep saying it on this fucking podcast because it needs to be said, I have had some of our most profound life-changing moments through drugs like MDMA. And I should be able to say that. That shouldn't be a weird thing to say. It should be normal. I could go into work on Monday and be like, fucking hell, I got smashed on the weekend, puked on myself, it was mental. And my boss would be like, oh, you're a bit of a lad you are, guys, no, crack on. If it came in on Monday, I was like, hey, boss, I had a wicked weekend, got some DMT, and I had this profound experience, and I've been really stressing out because, my grandparents are dead, but now I realise that I don't understand where they are, but, there's things beyond my comprehension, and it's given me a lot better sense of inner peace. What? You fucking fired. You know what I mean? It's mental. Like we have this. And
however, if you want to chain smoke, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Oh, go chain smoke, mate. In fact, we'll give you a fag break. Although having said that, I do know people that have worked in the city in London who used to do coke in the director's office with them and stuff. So I know there are places, there's businesses like that. And I'm not saying for any moment people should be going into work and doing coke. I'm not advocating coke breaks at work whatsoever. But I do think that, because people have this, most people say, oh, well, all the experience I've heard about people on drugs have been bad ones in the public. Well, yeah, because who's going to come out and say, yeah, it was one of the best things? Like, Boris Johnson's not going to come out and say, actually, I did drop a pinger once and I had a fucking awesome weekend. And like me and the mates that I was with, we got even closer. We told each other things that we never told each other before. Because one of the things about a lot of drugs, people say, oh, you're only saying stuff like that because you're on pills. No, not true. You're saying stuff that you always wanted to say that you never said because I'm worried about what someone's going to think about me. If I give this person my love, are they going to reject me? Like, don't get me wrong, you do talk some absolute bollocks too. But we say, when we take, things like, I needed those experiences with a lot of my issues from military service to pull down that barrier and be able to look at myself and be like, no, you're not a pussy because you have mental health problems. You're a good bloke. You did your best. You did your job. It's all right. And, it shouldn't be illegal for me to go through a life-saving fucking moment. Like, and I don't really know where I'm going with this, mate, because honestly, it just boggles my head. I feel like I'm trying to say like the sky is pink and the sky is blue and everyone else thinks it's pink.
Here's a question for you then. Do you think we will get there? Do you think we will follow what's happening in the States, albeit very slowly, with them with obviously marijuana now being decriminalized and legalized in certain states. Now they're taking the same approach to mushrooms. I think it is. I think California are looking to make it. Is it medical use or maybe even decriminalized?
Yeah.
Do you think we will follow? And if you do, how many years until we do?
I used to think so, mate. But the thing is about America is because you got a massive country of 350 million people or something like that. So you get pockets of the country where if you know it's a bit more, let's say the policy towards drugs is more liberal, people who think that way from all over the country will go there, and then they have voting power in that area so they can make changes there, and then the rest of the country sees it and it changes. We don't have that in this country. And unfortunately, the most people in this country have been sold a lie that drugs are all negative. And I'm not saying they're all positive, and I'm not saying everyone should fucking take them. But I grew up, mate, thinking if I took any drugs, my head would fucking explode, and then the next day I'd be living on the streets. And then it wasn't until I got to LA and I met all these people. I'm like, this guy's worth 15 million and he does all this stuff. This guy's got a charity and he does this. I'm like, fucking hell, these guys are doing drugs. What the fuck? When's his head going to explode? And unfortunately as a country, and here's the other thing, mate, as well, all these fucking politicians who were saying they're passing the laws, they're fucking all on it. I have mates who have worked in private security in those kind of circles. They're all on it. And then but without going down I hate politician route, I just don't think, because we have this, it's more on a national scale that we change things. Can it happen over a long period of time? I hope so. But honestly, mate, I'm not really that confident in it. How about yourself?
To be honest, I'd never really thought about it in that way, in terms of they can go state by state and affect change, whereas we would have to do it as an entire nation, wouldn't we? And when you put it that way, I'm not so optimistic, to be honest. Yeah, you've just killed any hope I had of them legalizing marijuana. Yeah, that's me finished now. Yeah, but no, I mean, as you say, these politicians, and we've seen this with the COVID policies, they're happy to push these laws and this legislation, but they don't adhere to it themselves. So, it's hypocrisy at its finest, and it is, as you say, the illusion of a democracy. How can they come forward and say, look, you should follow X, Y, and Z rule, when behind closed doors they don't do it? we don't entirely believe in it, because we haven't seen a conversation that says, look, this is the right way and this is why, here is the evidence, this is why we're doing it. So they're not presenting the evidence, they're not sticking to the rules themselves. But if we break them, we are, the worst criminals in society. Like, how have we even allowed our political system to get to a point like this, where they operate just completely unchecked?
Well, it is the thing with that lot, mate, with the drug use is, in the army you can get drug tested at any moment. Politicians don't get drug tested. The people, and to be honest, I don't care, because if they turn up and do their job, I don't give a fuck what they're doing in their spare time. But how can you say that it's that big of a deal, but then not subject yourself to the same standards? If it's the big deal that they're saying it is, then they should be drug tested. And if they've got, as they all think, well, if you've got nothing to hide, if they've got nothing to hide, they should take a fucking drug test on a weekly fucking basis.
They should do. If you're testing army lads, because you're saying, look, if you're military, and if you're heading and if you're heading a plan or whatever else, then you need to be completely off drugs and wherever else. Well, hang on a minute. So if these guys are going into this operation and you're subjecting them to testing, you're making policies that affect the entire country, all 70 million of us, but you're not subject to the same testing. How is that fair?
You could make a strong argument they shouldn't drink. I definitely believe that politicians should have to have a wank before they vote, because I honestly reckon that half the decisions we make as a country would be different if people just chilled the fuck out before they made them. I am joking there, but I'm actually not joking, because our hormones, as you were talking about earlier, have a massive, we're all human, we all have hormones. We can think differently one day to the next based on what our hormones are. I can't believe for 1 second that when they're in that fucking room in their little chimp cage and they're all fucking shouting. Well, that's what it looks like, mate. It looks like chimp cage. Yeah, it is. And they're all shouting at each other. They're doing everything except throwing shit. And they're shouting at each other. And you're thinking, like, there is no way that you are thinking with a clear head right now. Absolutely no way. And here's, This is the kind of, like you and I, we're like, right, we want to have an open discussion about steroids. We want to have an open discussion about parkour and things. They can't even discuss with their peers civilly what's going on. And then they wonder why the rest of the country are at each other's throats. There's zero leadership there. But let's get back into. We can't have you on here and not talk about the whole gym thing, mate. So let's get on the gym thing, mate. So you're famous for sticking up about gyms, basically. That's become that's how a lot of people are going to know about your name and stuff. On here is you are like kind of a face for leading the charge against closing gyms during lockdowns. I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I found myself catapulted to the forefront of the battle there, just by pure chance. Yeah, it was through social media. Do you know what I mean? They when they brought in the tier 3 restrictions, as you well know, some of your listeners may not. Liverpool was due to be the first city region that was pushed into tier 3, and the original legislation that was put forward stated that gyms and fitness facilities, the decision to close them would be left to local authority. So we heard that a few days before the announcement, and then the Prime Minister comes forward and he addresses the nation and he says, lists all the forced closures, and within that he says gyms and fitness centres are to close. Now, this is just his words. The legislation didn't state that. So you're like, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Have we been stitched up by our own mayors and our own MPs? So we reached out. We said, look, what's happening? It was meant to be up to you guys. There, here's the documentation. Here's the literature. There is no evidence to say that, to support our closure at this point. What's going on? And they come back and said, look, Nick, this was nothing to do with us. We were meant to be given a choice in this, and we weren't. They just completely bypassed us, despite what it says in the legislation. Our hands are tied. And I thought, hang on a minute. So the decision on paper is left to our local authority, and they basically stitched our local authority up and skipped it. So we banded together all the local gyms. We got like 50-60% of all the independent gyms across Merseyside, our city region, and said, look, what are we going to do? We've reached out to our politicians. We've reached out to the mayors. They're saying that we shouldn't be closed. It should have been their decision, and it wasn't. What do we do? Let's open in such a way that's doesn't look irresponsible. Make sure that our argument is coherent. We're going to make it clear that we're still sticking to COVID legislation. At every opportunity we get, we're going to express the importance of gyms and fitness centres on mental health, physical health, the low prevalence of COVID-19, within our industry, so that we don't look like a bunch of crazies. Do you know what I mean? We very, very, very quickly could have turned into, they're COVID deniers or anything else. And it was never, ever about that. It was about, hang on a minute. The data that's been provided doesn't support the decision that's been made, and legislation states that it shouldn't have happened. So the day before we were due to be pushed into tier 3, we put a video online and said, look, we're not going to close. These are the reasons why. The police come and seen us later that day. They said, look, guys, if you open tomorrow, we are going to have to come give you an official warning. Next day, we're going to give you a fine. So they come down the next day. Come in the morning, Nick, here's your first warning. No problem, guys. No worries. Do be nice, guys. Do you know what I mean? There's only 3 of them, local lads, all local gym users as well. We know most of the police. I said, look, we'll be back tomorrow to give you your first fine. 3 hours later, they come back, 7 or 8 of them they were tasked from the armed division. They weren't armed. I mean, they had their tasers, you can see it in the video, but they'd been tasked. And I said to them, guys, you weren't meant to be back till tomorrow. What's going on here? He said, Nick, we don't want to be here. We disagree with this. We know that it's wrong, but this has come from our boss's boss's boss. That was his exact words. I've got this on film. He said, we have to fine you. Please, will you shut now? Or we're going to have to fine you, and we really don't want to. I said, look, guys, we're staying open. It is what it is. Issue me the fine. I said, do me a favor. I'm just going to take a quick video to let people know that you've been here. I said, do yourselves a favor. Tick the box, stand apart, wear your mask. I don't want to be getting you in trouble any more than you want me to get in trouble. Do you know what I mean? So I took a quick 10-second pan of them, filmed the gym, went home, made a video about it. Video goes viral, got like 5.5 million views between Instagram and Facebook. And then boom, following day, we had every single press outlet at the door, Channel 4, ITV, Sky, BBC, you name it, even the New York Times come over. And then we started this campaign, if you will. And, we got on TV and it was like, look, this is what's happened. The prevalence in our sector is really low. We know the importance of the gym and fitness community and the fitness community, like the impact that we have on national health in terms of like healthcare savings and stuff like that is absolutely huge. And at this point, with the prevalence that we had in gyms for COVID, it didn't make any sense to do this. If anything, it was going to put more pressure on the NHS. It was going to do more damage to the community, and obviously with our mayor come forward and said, look, the financial package that's been offered to the businesses that are forced to close is completely unacceptable. They gave us, I think, I forget the exact numbers, but when we were pushed into tier 3 in Liverpool, it was 63% furlough. And then when the rest of the country got pushed into tier 3, London included, it then jumped up to 80%. So if you live in Liverpool, city region, you wear 13% less for no good reason. They didn't have the money at the time, but when another 30 million are pushed into tier 3, we found the money all of a sudden. And obviously, there's
Yeah, it's funny how they keep finding this money, mate. Like, where was this money for? Like, curing cancer wasn't that big of a deal, apparently. Couldn't find all the money for that. Couldn't press pause for flu and stuff. And all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, we can. Well, now we can find the money. And the other one as well, mate. And I got a bit, because I do have a bit of a fucking bee in my bonnet about this, because I feel the same way in Wales. Because in Wales, North Wales got shut down when all the instances are in Cardiff. There's nothing in the middle of Wales. We go across to Northern England, and South England goes across to South Wales. But they got instances in the south of the country, and they shut. And it was the same with London. As soon as London is in a tier 3, right, close the whole fucking country. It's fucking clearly been, this whole thing has been basically anywhere there's a government centred, so Cardiff, fucking London, wherever, it's as soon as that place is affected, close down everything else. And it's so obvious to see, mate, that they've been doing that. But sorry, mate, I interrupted the story.
No, it's terrifying. And I think Liverpool and North Wales share a very, very similar relationship with government in how they've been penalised over the years. But we managed to get a ton of public support. We started the petition. We got like 650,000 signatures on it. We had the MPs on board. We had the mayors on board. We got some of the huge brands on board that you've seen. We got Grenade on board, Pure Gym, David Lloyd's. It was a level of unity that I'd never seen probably in my entire life. For me as an independent business owner, and Chris and Thea, who have Empowered around the corner from me, we were having Zoom calls on day 2 with like the CMO of Pure Gym, the CEO of David Lloyd's, and you imagine Dave, who owns a local fish shop, having a Zoom call with the CEO of McDonald's. Do you know what I mean? For the best interests of their industry, it doesn't happen. And we got the first shouting debate we had Angela Eagle put the question forward to Matt Hancock, not Matt Hancock, one of the ministers anyway. Why are the gyms in Liverpool closed? You said it was up to us. You've made the decision. Why are they closed? And his response, he completely ignored the details of a question and said that decision was left to local authority, and then boom, shut it down and moved on to the next question. And she's standing there like, no, it isn't. I am local authority. You didn't involve me. So then we as the community were like, hang on a minute, who's lying to us? Is it local authority or is it central government? Because they're both pointing the finger at each other. So we made tons of noise. Obviously, we were all over the news, and they were forced to back down. And we had the gyms reopened. I think it took us all of 8 or 9 days to have them reopened. And I think they were testing the waters, in my opinion. They were testing the waters in Liverpool. If we'd have just taken it lying down, then everywhere else that went into tier 3 afterwards, after Liverpool, would have had their gyms closed. And as it transpired, that would have been, I think it was about 30 odd million people went into tier 3 in the end, and of which we had service users was about 4.5 million people. So that's 4.5 million people who then had access to their outlet for bettering their physical and mental health, who wouldn't have had we not campaigned. And we've continued that battle ever since. And as you've seen recently, we're pushing for a workout to help out. As we've seen the Eat Out to Help Out subsidising McDonald's, but we've seen further suppression of the health industry. It's lunacy, and it's becoming more and more apparent to normal people like yourself and me that that they're not acting in our best interest whatsoever. They're acting in their own interests, and then as a secondary consideration, it's what's best for the people. And as you said earlier, that's not democratic in the slightest.
Do you think that they chose the fitness industry to shut down because most people don't understand the fitness industry? Most people, unfortunately, don't use it, and it was an easy one to kind of throw to the wolves.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, I mean, you look at the caliber of individual that sits in our parliament, and you look at like the median age of our MPs. They're all sort of late 40s, early 50s, and they come from a generation that was never interested in health or gym. They in their minds, they see a gym as a load of big grunting guys sweating, iron clanging, They don't see the health benefits side of things. And as I was saying earlier, we save the country the best part of about 24 billion per year in healthcare savings. This isn't information that I've scribbled down. This is on Sports England's website. This is the data that we've got. 24 billion per year. And like some of the breakdowns, just to give you some of the stats, it's like 5.2 billion saved in general healthcare savings, 3.6 billion saved in preventing 900,000 cases of type 2 diabetes, 450 million saved preventing 30 million GP visits. We exercise and gym, sports, wherever else is paramount to tackling not only the obesity crisis, but the mental health crisis that we've got in the country. Suicide at a 20-year high. And we're saying we're acting in the best interest of the national health and protecting the NHS, but we're closing down the health and fitness industry, and then we're subsidising fast food. Just where's the logic? You tell me.
And something else that, again, it's only getting attention now, but I know you were saying this, and I've been saying this, is, they closed down the gyms over winter, and we're saying, it's not safe for a lot of people to go and exercise outside. They're saying go for a run or go outside. It's not safe for a lot of people. And unfortunately, we've seen that on the last weekend and stuff, and it's, now all of a sudden they care about it. Now all of a sudden you got MPs saying, well, why aren't the gyms open for women to be able to go and train safely in the gyms? Well, because you fucking shut them. And I can't get my head around, mate, how short people's memory is. It's they're the ones that shut them. And now you're going to say, oh, yeah, they're saying women should be in the gym. Bravo. I don't know, mate. So all countries seems to have fucking goldfish memory.
Yeah, it's hypocrisy again. And as goldfish memory, exactly. The whole protect and save the NHS narrative. If that's not hypocrisy at its finest, I don't know what is. I mean, you've seen me share videos on my Instagram for when they voted against the nurses' pay rise, in recent years. They all stand up and applaud the fact that this has been knocked back. This pay rise has been knocked back. These are our, quotes, heroes, unquotes. That's, this is the narrative that governments are pushing. NHS heroes, protect, save the NHS. And I completely agree. But how can they say that knowing that they've crippled the service year on year? And, there's videos of them stepping up in Parliament and applauding the fact that nurses have been knocked back their pay rise. And now they're asking me and you to stand on our doorsteps and clap for the NHS.
Well, when they go and get a mortgage, mate, they'll just say, well, what's your credit? Oh, don't worry about that. I have people clap on my doorsteps for me. Just give me the fucking mortgage. It's mental, mate. But unfortunately, a lot of people fucking buy into it. And it's sad, mate. I would love to have faith in the political system. I really would. And I always tell people it's very hard to have faith in it when you've been involved in 2 military disasters. But at least I used to think it was kept outside this country. And unfortunately, now they've turned inwards and they're selling out. They're selling out the country, mate. They're selling out. And this idea of, you made a really good post about this, was when they were doing these, can you look them in the eyes and all that stuff. I'm thinking, well, why couldn't those posters have been about, this is a way you can work out at home. This is something healthy you can eat at home. This is the problem with eating fast food. Why can't those be the posters?
Yeah, and not only that, the vast majority of this country pay their TV license for the BBC. Did we at any point see anything on the BBC about healthy eating, about exercise? Did we see any workout classes on there? It would have cost the BBC £50 to have a PT come in and do a 1-hour exercise class broadcast to the millions and millions of people that watch the BBC every day. But did they do that? No, they didn't. They said, here's 950 million. Go and get your 50% off at McDonald's. Don't worry about the fact that 60% of the country are overweight, over 50% are obese. Don't worry about the fact that obesity makes you 113% more likely to be hospitalized with COVID. Don't worry about the fact that you're 48% more likely to die from COVID if you're obese. Don't worry about that. Just have your 50% off McDonald's. Don't go anywhere near your gym. We put chains and fences around the outdoor exercise facilities. You just sit at home, play on social media and eat your fast food. But yeah, we're acting in the best interest of national health. And please remember, go to your front step, clap for the NHS.
Yeah, it's mental, mate. It's absolutely bonkers. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I do think, did those drugs I used to take in my past fuck my head up, and now I'm mental and everyone else is? Because sometimes, mate, I genuinely think, oh, I must be mental and everyone else is, and all this is sane. Because you just can't get your head around it, mate.
One question I had for you, as a man who's put himself in the line of fire for protecting, I assume, everything that this country stands for and everything that we have in the Western world, our civil liberties and everything else. How do you feel personally about the fact that not the fact that they're taking away our civil liberties under the umbrella of protecting national health? How do you feel about the fact that they're doing that, but not having a public discussion about the risk and the benefit to taking away them liberties.
What I will say is the wars I was sent to, I thought at the time were to protect Britain, and they weren't. They were just to line politicians' pockets. So, and to be honest, man, that's a fucking bitter pill to swallow. I still would have gone anyway because I enjoy a scrap. But that's the truth, though. Like that's the truth. By the time I went to Afghanistan, I already realised it was a crock of shit.
Oh, for sure. But in your mindset, you felt you were.
But the fact is, mate, within a few hundred metres of where I am now, there's a war memorial over that way. There's a war memorial over that way, and this is a small village, and there's hundreds of names on those war memorials. And I think that what's going on, mate, is that I have two main strong feelings on it. One, I think the people who are taking it away, even if they think they're doing it for the best reasons, I think they are absolute enemies of the state. And the other thing I think is that we are massively a nation of cowards because people aren't willing to stand up. People aren't even willing. People are willing to say, and again, mate, it's like the whole clap on the step syndrome. Oh, Remembrance Sunday, brilliant. Yeah, they gave us so much. We will remember them. And then be like, no, I'm not going to say anything on social media because someone might unfollow me. Like, people aren't even willing to give up a fucking follower on social media, mate. We're a nation of cowards, to be honest, mate. It's fucking mad. It's mental, mate. We genuinely are. We haven't got any, we haven't got any concept of how good we've had it and how quickly it can go bad. And it really can go bad quickly. It really can. You ask people that were around for the Second World War, a lot of people up until it happened were like, I'll be all right. No, I'll be all right. No, I'll be all right. No, I'll be all right. The next minute, there's bombs falling on London. And it's the same situation we're in now, mate. Like, we are undoubtedly sliding towards a more draconian nation. Like, who could have thought over a year ago you could get, like I said, I put something on social media the other day, like this is an American example, but it works for Britain too, that you've got, I'll tell you what, actually, here's an example of a British one. You've got Matt Hancock, who's basically just denies handing contracts to his mates, which he's clearly guilty of. Nothing happens to him. And then in Manchester yesterday, you got 4 lads kicking a football round who all got fined each and detained by the police. So, right, I'm glad we took that action against those 4 lads kicking a football and nothing against Matt Hancock. And that if that is not an authoritarian regime, it's okay, it's not as bad as North Korea by any stretch, but it's the same business model essentially. We're just not as far into the fucking business.
Yep.
It's sad, mate. But I want to finish on a positive note because I know we are both positive people too. And I think that's genuinely the truth, because I think one of the reasons that we get frustrated with this is because we think the country and human beings are capable of so much good. And that's what we want to see from people. So what are you most optimistic about this year then?
I am optimistic because of the awareness that's been brought forward due to all of this. I think the silver lining of this pandemic is it's brought to the forefront of people's minds where we can really put more effort in and make more change. I mean, it's shown us what our faults are, as bare and naked, as ugly as they get. And we can't deny them anymore. So the only real way for us now, in my opinion, is up. Do you know what I mean? We've got awareness around so many more things now. Mental health being talked about more, health in general, nutrition in general, fitness in general. Everything is being talked about more, and we're seeing a shift in mainstream media now talking about this. And I think moving forward out of this, I think it's going to be really positive, to be honest. And that's from a health perspective and from a community perspective. Look, it's going to be nothing but positive from here. Do you know what I mean? We've all been suppressed for the last, for 9 of the last 12 months. Most people haven't seen their families. Everything moving forward now, in my opinion, is going to be positive. We're all going to get to see our families again, get to go back to work, get our health good again, enjoy the things that we really enjoy in life. And maybe, just maybe, we've been reminded of, as you say, how good we've had it for so many years. And we hopefully people have got a better understanding now, as I did going to prison, of what really matters in life, and the little things that are taken away that you don't appreciate until they are taken away. So I think personally, I believe I'm optimistic moving forward now. I think people are going to appreciate things so much more now that they've had it taken away and they know what it's like to live without them things. So I'm super optimistic for the rest of this year, dude, especially like sort of summer onwards. I think we're going to have a really, really good year.
Guys, thanks for listening to the podcast today. Hope you enjoyed it. That absolutely flew by for me. Really loved it. Nick, thanks for coming on the podcast, mate. Looking forward to doing one again in person. We're not that far from each other. So, let's get another one on the books when we're allowed, when Comrade Boris lets us out. That would be great. Guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, please go and follow Nick. I will put all his details for his gym, his social media, everything like that is all down in the show notes. So just go down there and you'll find everything you need. Just click on it and it'll take you through to where you need to go. I want to thank Combat Fuel for sponsoring today's episode. Me love you guys, long time as ever. They're all tagged up in the show notes as well, guys. And also the Royal British Legion would not be able to do what we do without them. If you are a veteran, if you are a veteran family, or if you know veterans and veterans of their families, head down to the show notes, click on the link and go and see what the Legion have to offer. They do all kinds of stuff, guys, from sponsoring podcasts like this one to business loans. If you're a veteran and you're trying to get started in business, there's a lot of financial advice on there. Unfortunately, a lot of people are going to be going through financial difficulties at the moment, so you'll find it all down there, guys. So just check them out. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please tell a mate. Please bring a mate along to the podcast. We can't grow without you, basically, guys. We don't have an advertising budget or anything like that. So there's a lot of veterans out there, and I think that you'll agree that what we bring on the podcast, there's usually something per episode that you think other people would benefit from hearing. So please spread the word, spread the podcast, make a post, leave us a review. If you leave us a review as well, I'll read it out on the rants and bants when I get Joe in. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. Nick, cheers, mate. And we'll catch you next time. I love you, bye.
You told me not to worry, and you wouldn't break my heart. You told me you were sorry, yeah, my whole world fell apart. You said it's not my fault, and yeah, I've never done you wrong. I'm grinding to a halt, now I can see you're moving on. I promised I'd get better, and I told you things would change. You keep me to the gutter, yeah, I'll never be the same. I've got to let you go, now live your life and spread your wings. And yeah, you put on quite a show, and pulled the puppet strings. And are you sure that you don't want me? Remember all the pain, or maybe you should thank me, it's your loss and my gain. I'm leaving now forever, I won't hang my head in shame. But yeah, you've taken me for granted, and you should feel ashamed. You sold a dream to all of us, a dream that we'd all die for, a reason for us all to live and something we could fight for. I might just help a man up to his feet or hold a newborn, but no matter what I do, my hands remembering my rifle, yeah.
Life's hard, I know that, still wouldn't change shit. I wouldn't go back, yeah, I wouldn't go back. Feelings I hold back, memories fade, yeah, they go fast, yeah, they go fast. Good times to come and go, survive the highs and lows, just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose. Good times to come and go, survive the highs and lows, just take it step by step, I guess.